Yeah, we've conducted 3 years of research on youth homelessness across Canada, and we partnered with 3 agencies, one in Toronto, one in Calgary, and one in St. John's, to hear directly from close to 700 youth what they think is facing them around being homeless and what has helped them get off the streets and become more stable. And certainly that research also involved other current research on youth homelessness, as well as consulting with close to 300 people across the country, different stakeholders on the issue. And that culminated in our report, Youth Homelessness in Canada, The Road to Solutions. We just publicly released that report in November. And we were pleased to get lots of public attention drawn to the issue of youth homelessness and what are some of the solutions. Well, I think the area of youth homelessness is such an important area. Often, sometimes when we talk about homelessness, it's really important to highlight young people who are particularly vulnerable, and they have different needs. Certainly, they don't always have the life skills or supports in place in their life, and then dealing with homelessness on top of that, they're very, very vulnerable to exploitation on the streets. And I think we really owe it to our young people to help them get on track and help them now so they don't end up in a long-term cycle of homelessness. Well, that's a really important question, and I think there's a lot of agreement in the sector that there needs to be a really comprehensive plan to address the issue of homelessness. And we know, as I mentioned, 65,000 homeless youth in Canada, that it's critical that we address this now. And there's lots of conversations, and even in Parliament moving forward a bill to have a national housing strategy. And I think that's absolutely critical. And I would just add that in that there's a real clear focus and strategy to help homeless young people in this country. I think the other part of that is that funds and resources need to be long-term and stable in terms of being able to really not just effectively kind of have a band-aid solution to the issue of homelessness, but really to look at how we can prevent it and address it long-term. And that involves all the different stakeholders in the community. That involves government, people who have been homeless, young people who have been homeless, agencies, and corporations and businesses and unions. We need to all work with different levels and different orders of government to look at how we can have long-term investment to provide appropriate solutions and opportunities to prevent homelessness. Well, I think that it's really, really important that the federal government is a leader in developing, as I mentioned, a national housing strategy, and ensuring that in that strategy there's really clear policies and priorities and objectives to address youth homelessness. And the Homelessness Partnering Secretariat, which has been running for almost 10 years or over 10 years in Canada, has been really effective at addressing homelessness across the countries, and they have 7 funding priorities. And I would add that it would be really important to list one of those priorities as young people, so that we really need to make sure that the unique needs of youth who are homeless are addressed by having them as one of the 7 priorities, or the 8th priority in the Homelessness Partnering Secretariat's priorities. I think that's a really important piece. And they can really act as a leader. And then when other provinces as well and territories are developing some of their policies around youth homelessness through some of their consultations with the local community, that I think the federal government can really set the tone and be a leader in that area. We wrote the report, Youth Homelessness in Canada, The Road to Solutions. And as I mentioned, many people across the country had input into that report, so it really reflects many voices across the country about the issue of youth homelessness and what can be done to solve it. And some of the recommendations in that report, we're looking at what Raising the Roof can do to carry forward some of those recommendations. And certainly we want to continue to work closely with communities and government to work on implementing some of those recommendations and policies that really can address and prevent youth homelessness, as well as developing a national public education campaign to really help educate and engage the public about what they can do, and to dispel some of the myths about who are young people who end up homeless and what are some of their circumstances. And the third area in our Youth Works project and research that we're doing is understanding how the private sector can play a role. And we're currently doing background research on really innovative employment, skills training, and mentorship opportunities that the private sector, both corporations, businesses, and unions, have been involved in across the country, and looking at really encouraging more private sector involvement in employment, skills training, and mentorship, and really how can they play a key role in addressing and being part of the solution to helping homeless young people get on the right path in their life.